All right, welcome to the women's event that we are having here at Umuzi. This is Women's Month. I have some phenomenal ladies in respective spaces across industry, really to speak to every single one of you and really hope to strike at your heart chords. So we're hoping that whether you're a creative, whether you're a techie or just a boss lady, you will feel inspired today. My name is Mutinta Sivelane, and I am the community lead here at Umuzi. And I think as the host, as Umuzi, I'm going to invite Sarah Brakeman to introduce herself a little bit and talk a bit about her journey as a woman in leadership.
Thank you, Mutinta. I hope everybody is having a great day. I'm so happy to be with you on this panel. I work at Umuzi. I'm Umuzi's CTO and joined earlier this year, so I'm still relatively new to Umuzi and finding my feet with my team. I lead the tech and data teams at Umuzi, and so we support both the tech education that we're doing as subject matter experts with our learners and making sure that we are able to provide excellent learning and education to all of the learners that are with us, in addition to building and supporting all of the tech and data systems that we are using to do everything that we're up to at Umuzi. So that's what I'm doing now. I am from Boston in the United States. I live in Mauritius and have been here for almost 9 years now, but also did a study in Cape Town at UCT for part of my undergrad. And I'm happy to be back more in the South African space after working in more of the Pan-African space for a while. I am really passionate about using technology to actually have impact in people's lives and not falling into the trap that I think we see big tech pulling many people into in the world, where the tech may serve a purpose, but isn't really driving for the kind of change and the kind of world that I want to see. And that's in particular what has brought me into these kinds of roles and into education in particular as a way to really drive that mission of mine to make sure that what I'm working on is meaningful and hopefully causing good, not harm, at the base of what I'm doing. Before education, I was working a bit in digital healthcare. I worked with some projects in South Africa and Lesotho and also Nigeria, and then found my way to education, where I found a home for almost 10 years and have been working with staff-facing systems, learner-facing systems, and figuring out how we drive excellent experiences for both and really meet people where they're at, working with but previously I was also working at a university in education, and so much more Pan-African tilt. But very similar challenges. And it's been quite interesting as well to be in the space as we're watching more AI and GPT take hold and really taking into account how that's going to change our world and how we can try to use that trend for intentionally, let me say. So that's me. I'm super excited to be here and share with you all more about my journey and hear from these other panelists as well.
Okay, cool. I've already got questions for you. Sipo, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey as a woman in leadership.
Sure. Well, my name is. Oh, was it Nosipo or Sinesipo?
Sipo. It's all right.
Yeah, so that's amazing. Sure, I'll go. My name is Nesipo Ngaisa. I'm currently working as strategic comms lead at Data Free Technologies. Essentially, we're a tech company that makes digital platforms accessible without the end user needing mobile data. This obviously has multiple use cases for enterprises and people within the social impact space. Quite not to jump on Sarah's bandwagon, but similar to Sarah, I'm very moved by access and providing more access. Previously, before joining Data Free about 9 months ago now, I was at Bolt. And what pulled me towards Bolt as an e-hailing company was its impact in terms of mitigating the issues of apartheid spatial planning by providing transportation for people, giving them access to opportunity. And I think, as you can hear about Data Free, what the technology does is it provides people with access to the internet, which obviously gives you the opportunity to dream and imagine and see so much that you usually wouldn't ordinarily be exposed to. And it unlocks so much for so many people in various different spaces. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm also a mother. which has had a great impact on me learning to be more empathetic and making sure that I look at empathy as a muscle that is important to build and train and continuously work on, especially within leadership, within the workspace, and any community that one finds themselves in. And yeah, that's basically it about me. Lovely to be here and meet everyone.
Yeah, those are some exciting projects. I think the data-free app usage is insane, and it's definitely needed. And it's really cool to know that that solution exists, outside of us needing to send out my stipends, what is the possibility with having free data apps? So thank you so much for that, Snesipo. Nosipo, your turn. It's now your turn.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. I was nervous, very nervous, but I think it comes with, this kind of like platform, and I think it's always interesting. But I'm Nosipo, born and bred in KZN, and I made my moves and ended up in Johannesburg, where I afforded myself my place in the advertising industry, and I've been in the industry for over 10 years now. And as of right now, I am at Ogilvy as a creative lead. And I basically sit mostly in the retail space, which is quite a new space for me as well. It's been very interesting to kind of navigate the creative thinking within that space, given that it's very much on the direct selling side of things. And I think most of my career, it's been driving big ideas and building brands, which is something that I'm very passionate about. And now I've afforded myself a chance to also then lean more on the business and marketing side of things, which has been really great for me. And yeah, it's been really amazing. So I sit on the art director side of things. I'm very passionate about visual storytelling, and how we can basically build brands just beyond just visuals as well, but visual strategic thinking as well, which has been a great part of what I do as well, and really kind of understanding the market as well and what we need. And it's so interesting because advertising basically raised us. Like when I look back in how ads have been so impactful in our lives, and me being able now to sit in a room and make creative decisions for the next generation, and how there's going to be jingles that we used to sing, and now we are creating a platform where our kids are going to have ads that they can look back in and say that those raised me. So it's definitely been such an amazing space to be part of, and lead amazing creatives. And also as well, I am a mom of two beautiful girls, and that definitely has played a big role in terms of like very similar to what Sinisipo was saying, which I think is so powerful about just kind of growing empathy, and really kind of caring for people in that way, because I think kids kind of bring that out of you as well. And the kind of work that I feel like I'm leaning more towards now is really just work that goes beyond just building profitable businesses, but also work that lives in people's lives and impacts people's life in a very positive way. So it's been really great to be in that space. So that's me, and I'm so grateful to be here today.
Yeah, love creatives. Creatives should be everywhere, in every space. I think we're such an exciting group of people, and I'm really glad to have you here as well to talk about this and unpack, I guess, womanhood and women at work from a creative perspective. We do have Tanya. Tanya is here, and she is a coach among some many other accolades. Tanya, would you mind introducing yourself to everybody on the panel as well as everyone watching?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya, and I'm an African girl. I was born in Mozambique, and at the age of 6, I moved to Swaziland, where I started my primary, secondary, and all the way to my first degree journey. And I left Swaziland I just knew I wanted to go to UCT. I just didn't know. Well, I knew it was one of the best universities in the world. But I just said to my dad, yes, I'll go to Wits or everywhere else if I don't get into UCT. But from Swaziland, I'm going straight to Cape Town, not knowing that's where I was going to meet my husband, my ex-husband now, the father of my kids, and and have one of the best experiences in my life. And I still remember when I was at UCT, I got married, and right after marriage, we already had a baby, and I started a new job at Old Mutual in Cape Town, and I was doing my MBA at the same time. I'd leave the house at 7 to Old Mutual and work until 4, run to the Graduate School of Business in town, and try and do the MBA from 5:30 until 10 p.m. and then go back home. I had to breastfeed. This baby's crying already. It was crazy, and I think one of my son's kids, my son is around, he's studying business administration as well in Washington he's going for his third year, so he's around. And whenever he's around, there's always another friend who's using the other room. So I was having a conversation with him this afternoon, and he says, Auntie, where do you think you got the discipline from? And I was like, I think it was boarding school, because, that structure, it really made me competitive, even to the level of my uniform must be the best amongst everybody who has a uniform in my surroundings. So it made me very competitive and very go-getter, because I was just telling my son yesterday that your sister was born in Durban. I was having an interview. He's like, what? It's like, yeah, that's how much I've always been that girl who wants something and to make something out of nothing and just run after life and stuff like that. So I'm one of the best training experts you'll ever meet in your lives. And as Nosipo was talking, I said, Nosipo, I need you, because I'm just the best in my head. Nobody else knows that. And that's where you come in. And as you were speaking, I was like, if I could do that for Tanya, the coach, because I am a singer in Mozambique. I'm a gospel singer in Mozambique, very popular. I own a TV station. I always wanted to be the next Oprah Winfrey, making money through TV. I know how to do it, but I haven't been able to do it for Tanya, the coach. And I've been doing this coaching training for 25 years, studying at Old Mutual. And I'm an economist actually by profession, but because of SACWA, when it came about during the Thabo Mbeki time, they started demanding that companies train their personnel. So that's when I came in. I started designing this for the Faculty of Economics at UCT. And then I got into training, and economics I'm a consultant as well, so I use it every now and again. But the training is the mission, the transforming. When you transform someone and you find yourself being transformed as you're transforming others, it's the greatest gift of all. So I think, as an intro, that's who I am. I'm a creative, an economist that sings. I'm probably the only one. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think I stand behind what you said in your mission. I feel like, on this topic of today, when we're talking about women and work, I was watching rather a documentary about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And Meghan said something that really stuck with me. She said, women don't need to be taught how to find their voice. They need to be empowered to use their voice. And that's the work of what today is about. I think the intention when we came up with this was literally just to talk about women in leadership, because I don't feel like we encounter it enough. We don't get to interact with them enough. And it doesn't become a viable dream to the young girl. And I think in demystifying the myths and really talking about it from all angles was the intention of today. So please share from the heart and understand that there are young women who could be shaped by this conversation. So Snesipo, I'd like to start with you. I'd like to find out, when did you first encounter a woman in leadership, and how did that change your perspective today?
I think that's such an interesting question, because a lot of people assume that you'll speak about like your first boss, or the first like woman leader experience in the workplace. But I think for me, coming from an extremely matriarchal family, it has to be having witnessed my grandmother lead with such power and such force and such determination. I think when Tanya was speaking, I was thinking about how So my mom had me at 16, and then she had my sister at 19. And my gran was so adamant on making sure that we didn't let whatever stigma came with that stick to us and let it be an excuse for us not becoming something in the world. And I think learning from someone like that, who wasn't necessarily in a formal structure or setup, gave me certain principles that made me believe that anything is possible as long as you try. So I think learning about the importance of trying and learning about the importance of making sure that your voice is heard when you feel it's necessary. Because sometimes people are like, oh, we're in a meeting. Why didn't you speak? Why didn't you say anything? It's like, no, I didn't feel the need to, or I didn't think there was something of value that I could add to the conversation. But witnessing the way my grandmother moved in terms of leading the family, leading us as a household, was really instrumental for me. And then, funnily enough, Nosipo, my third role was in advertising. I worked at FCB as a strategist. But before that, I worked at Constitution Hill, and the lady that was leading was actually a woman, and she was also extremely intelligent. Her name was Dawn. To prove that she was really great, I can't remember her surname, but I can remember her first name. That's when you know that somebody had a really good relationship with everyone in the organization. So women of that nature, there are actually too many women to name. But I think one of the biggest things I've learned from them is the importance of speaking when necessary, asserting yourself when necessary, and also making sure that nobody can silence you within a space. I think those are the lessons that have shaped my journey today, but also extending a level of care and empathy has been something that I've been so fortunate to receive from so many women in leadership within my career and in my life. And I feel it's something that I hold so close and dear and want to impart onto the next person consistently wherever I go.
Thank you so much. And I completely agree with you, because it always feels like we're not supposed to kind of be in the room, and we're not supposed to have the opinions. And especially when we're looking at systems and executions that do require empathy, it almost feels like we're making it harder for everybody else. But there's something innate in us, that nurturing care, we can't not do it. And I think it's about embracing that as a strength as opposed to making it a weakness. My next question, Sarah. So you've led large digital transformation projects that have impacted thousands of users. How do you balance the technical excellence with empathy and human-centered design, especially in environments where, the system wasn't shaped by a woman?
Yes. Okay, this is a great one, because this is also like core to what I mentioned in my intro, right? I don't want to build tech just to be building tech. That is not what brings me fulfillment or brings people in the world value. Any of us can design the most beautiful user interface app or the most amazing AI tool, but if it's not meeting people where they're at, what's the point? Nobody's going to use it if it's not actually solving a real challenge or facing a real opportunity. There's no point in my perspective. And so if there's no empathy and no design focus at the beginning, then okay, great, you're going to have this amazingly built tool that's going to sit there on a shelf. And that's not my view on why we should be building tech systems. And that's part of why with my tech track, I started more the engineering route, but very quickly found out about user experience and product management, which were fields and terms that I had no exposure to as a young person, even in all of the push that was happening, especially in Boston at the time, to try to get more women and girls into STEM when I was in elementary and primary and high school. And they never mentioned that there are these other things. You don't have to just be an engineer or a mathematician or whatever it may be, that there are these fields that help shape what is made. And that is really what I fell in love with. How do I get more involved in making sure we're solving the right problems with the user experience of it, making sure that we're actually designing a product that works, that has a really clear idea driving it and a really clear purpose, and making sure that with my teams, I'm trying to lead that way. So making sure that even for people that are in a more development role or a more specific data role, making sure that at the core of everything we're doing, we're thinking through that user experience and thinking through why we're building what we're building and how do we make it work for the people that are actually our users. Especially in smaller tech teams, you often don't have a very robust user experience function or product management function that you do with these bigger tech firms. And so it does also push people to move more into that space and make sure that they are bringing that thinking into the work they're doing, whatever role they're in. And to me, that will help people just push their work even further, because what's at the root of that is designing what matters and thinking through how it's actually going to meet your users where they are.
Yeah, and I think when you speak about users, considering how much you've moved around, I'm a little bit curious to understand, how do you incorporate the culture of the people you're building for? Is that something that you go on the ground and do, like, a deep dive into the culture, or is it like something that I'm not sure, like, what does that look like? Because I'm from Zambia, and Zambia's reality versus South Africa's reality from every level is completely different. So I can imagine with tech, there'd be those demands as well.
Absolutely. In an ideal world, yes, I would love to be on the ground actually talking to users. In the real world, we don't always get that opportunity. And so I think that's the challenge, really, for especially organizations that drive products that are facing more communities that are different. And even within a single country, you have so many different types of communities, right? And the reality is you can never visit them all in person. So how do you get that understanding without going there? That's the trick. I don't think there's a magic sauce that solves it. To me, the key is bringing in as many designers as you can in the process, because then at least you're getting more perspectives in the room, but based on the team that you're working with, right? So especially for me in my role as an American working on primarily African-facing tech, I shouldn't be the driving voice in understanding our user, because I am not that user, right? And so making sure that I'm balancing that out and not speaking from my own bias and bringing in as many other opinions and perspectives as I can, gender, whatever it is, background, education, community, whatever that looks like, always ends up leading to a better design and a better product when you bring in different perspectives.
Thank you so much for that. I respect that. To everybody who's watching, please feel free to share messages and questions that you may have for the speakers as you hear them speak. I promise there will be time to answer all of it, and I'll be taking note. Nosipho, you are next, right? So I have a love-hate relationship with advertising. I feel like it's such a beautiful catalyst, but it can be one of the craziest places to work. So in the creative space, we understand that it's ruthless, and feedback is constructive, they say, but it can actually really tear people down. I know people who fainted at work. I've had several panic attacks at work because of the amount of feedback that comes in advertising. It's a lot, So when does it ever feel like enough, So I'd like to understand that. Has there been like a sisterhood that has been created at work? Is there anything like that in the industry that helps support you? And just how do you navigate that much feedback all the time?
So it's definitely brutal. And I can understand, because we marry our work, the kind, like our craft and all of those things. And so people hold so much heart to their ideas, and which they should feel strongly so about their ideas. And having someone kind of scrutinize that can be a very hard thing to hear. Unfortunately, it does come with the job, because we are serving a bigger purpose, and we are meeting a lot of like brand objectives. So as much as creativity is beautiful and it's all that, at the end of the day, we are also in the business of meeting briefs. And because of that, like there will be criticism, but also there will be opinions about your craft. It does come with the job. And I think that's where the brutal part comes in, because again, when you marry your ideas so much and you feel so strongly about them, there is a level of wanting to hold it to yourself. So that does come with the job, unfortunately. But I think also more than anything, it shouldn't be brutal per se. I think I think one of the things that we say quite a lot is we want to ensure that we are constantly giving constructive feedback, because the industry sits in two. It sits with how do we please client, but how do we ensure that our people are happy, which is the creatives, the crafters, the mind behind a lot of the stuff. And so it is a bit of a two-way job where we are leading in terms of making sure that our clients are happy, but also making sure our people are happy so they can continue to produce the best work possible. So I think the one that has to do with just constructive feedback, it sits a lot with us, right? In terms of creating that space, that safe space, where as women we can definitely, I can safely say, by the way, that I have been led by a lot of powerful women in my time in the industry. And that's something I'm very grateful about, where it wasn't a matter of we intimidate, but rather we hold spaces for each other, right? And we build together. And you have basically created a nest of really safe spaces to exist and grow as well. And I think that's one of the things that is important, to build that net for yourself and networking as well. Because one of the things that happens is that creativity, you can also be very much how can I say this, where you are very much into ideas, but you're not really broadening up your thinking and everything else. And obviously that comes with you not being able to accept feedback because of maybe not expanding your thinking and your network as well as a creative, just beyond being a woman as well, just being a strong creative, right? Is that feedback will be there. But if you start creating platforms for yourself where you are growing as a person, your network matters quite a lot. I have a full net of sisterhood in the industry, people that I hold quite dear, people that have led me, people that I have shared like the most amazing kind of work with. And I think I'm very grateful for those spaces, because more than anything, I don't then now sit in a space where I marry my ideas so much that I'm unable to let go, which is also very important, to let go of your ideas, right? Because it helps you grow as well as a person. Feedback, yes, can be harsh, but it's there to grow you as a person and expand your thinking as well. So I have been very grateful to have a net of those kind of women that are my sisters, that are my best friends, beyond the industry as well, just beyond the creative industry as well, in other fields as well. And just building that network, it really kind of creates a safety net for your work to thrive, but also for ideas to thrive, but also it keeps you on your toes, which I think is important for this kind of industry, because we are forever evolving. We think different every day. And there's also AI that's come in and kind of, also is pressing really hard in terms of pushing human beings to think faster, to think quicker. And I think that's all of those things then kind of create more of a demand for creativity, but also creates a demand for the quality of work that we are putting out as creatives as well. I hope that answers the question. There's a whole lot of stuff that I said in there, but I hope it it narrows it down.
No, it really does. And I think it's really important that you found a space within that space that can hold you and keep you safe. I think I was in the creative space for quite a lot of time, and that feedback was extremely difficult to reconcile with and make sense of, because I also didn't trust the intentions of the person giving me feedback, and I did have an amazing, amazing leader who spoke to my strengths before I even acknowledged that they existed. I didn't believe in them at all. And she changed my trajectory. And she was the first Black woman I saw in leadership that made it feel relatable. I didn't feel like I needed to go to Harvard or Oxford in order to get the accreditation. Me, little old me, can aspire for that, And I think that's really what I'm trying to embed today, that we're just ladies, we're just people, who have these really strong feelings about certain things, and those are going to be the catalysts into doing amazing things in the world. So take that little idea and, plant it as a seed. It'll blossom into something beautiful. Tanya, I'm ready for you. As a woman who's been in leadership and who likely coaches a lot of female executives, what do you wish women in leadership positions or aspirant leadership positions, what do you wish they woke up with daily believing about themselves?
I wish, it's funny because as you said, having coached, and I just picked up the chairman of Standard Bank in Mozambique, who is a friend as well. And I still remember in a conference, she said how we became friends. She said, I am a mathematician, PhD, you name it, from the best universities in the UK. And I have been on all sorts of boards. Today I'm at Standard Bank, but I still can't negotiate my salary. And I looked at her and I said, why? And the whole room just went silent. And she said, okay, maybe you should start coaching me. And we started the journey. But I think for me, she summarizes all of them. Just be bolder. I wish they were bolder. I wish they knew who they are at the core, at the core of their being. I wish they understood their power, the real power they have. I wish they remembered that, they made man, and then took hold of that knowledge so strongly. I wish there were more of the ones in the past, like the Josina Machels, the grabbers. I wish that we could grab more and be more aggressive like men. I wish there was more gut. I can't find a word. Yeah.
That almost sounded like a poem to me. That was beautiful. My next question is for Sinesipo. Understanding that you've been in retail and tech as a woman, with these wishes now behind you, doing well, from your grandmother. I think those are such a beautiful testament to feminism before it had a word, right? They just were. I think it's such an isness. I don't feel like I need to subscribe to a movement to be it. And I think that was such a beautiful thing that you shared. But having been in these different spaces, how have you navigated it, being Black, being woman, what is the difference between the retail and tech space when it comes to your identity and how you show up? And just what were your tricks? What was your bag of tricks and tools that you used?
So I think Younger might have got tricked you there, but it's advertising and tech. So as I mentioned before, I was at FCB. I actually worked with quite a few people that had gone through the program from Umuzi. So that was quite cool. And then 2020, I moved to Bolt, which is in the tech space and e-hailing. And I think both spaces are quite male dominated, as the question in the comments says. But you learn in advertising, you learn to hustle, like to fight for your idea, to fight that it belongs on the page. And similarly, like you need to fight for yourself as much as you fight for the idea. The feedback is really tough, as you mentioned before. Everyone thinks they know much better than you. Even the consumers have a lot to say. This ad is horrible. This campaign is whack. But leaning in on the fact that, hey, I hold some value. My thoughts don't just come out of nowhere. Trusting your process yourself in terms of this is well researched. This makes sense. This is logical. Is a very important thing to stand behind. But yeah, from there I learned a lot of like trusting my intuition, being resilient, learning how to read people and communities. Being aware of my positionality was also a very important thing, because you sort of have to develop your sociological imagination in a way that says, okay, how do I create something or be a part of something that is going to make someone money but isn't going to be horrible for the world? And that's like a very interesting place to be in, especially when you're a big feeler, and hold like very deep emotions. But I think that being in that space and moving into tech was very beneficial for me, because in tech you need like a lot of strategic foresight, and you really need a lot of trust in your voice, because you have to be data driven. You have to be informed in the decisions that you're making and in the conversations that you're bringing to the table. You also have to be like quite fluid, but you still need to be assertive when it's necessary and firm, especially when you're presenting something that might be new or different. So some context I can give you is that working at Bolt, it's a global company with HQ sitting in Estonia. Culturally, that's completely different to South Africa, where we're actually their largest market. And one thing that I would always clash about is in Europe, the idea of not having a car and being able to use the public transport system and all of that is very divorced from the context of what having a car means in South Africa, and being freed from the transport system. So localizing those comms and fighting for the local and hyper localized context to be what exists here was a very interesting challenge, especially when the people that you're presenting this idea to and this cultural nuance to are completely different to you and the audience that you're serving. So you need to back yourself up with data when you can, because that's what will do the fighting for you. And that's what also enables you to not sink into this room where you start internalizing feedback in a way that suggests that it's a personal thing. Because I don't like making assumptions about why somebody is saying something. So I don't want to make it about me being a Black woman and me dealing with a white male in a white male dominated space. And when I bring my data to the table, that can do a lot of fighting for me, where I don't have to personalize quite a lot of things. I try to make my work life very easy. Life is very difficult. I don't want to add more from that perspective. So that's been my approach, and those have been the learnings from the two different fields. But like, I've literally had to learn to basically stand my ground. I'm very tiny, but there's a lot of dynamite from centering courage, and building that muscle. I think having mentors, speaking to older women within the space that you find yourself in is very, very important and very helpful for yourself, because it also trains you to become that for others as they come in. And that's sort of a way of bringing back. So I don't know if I'm really answering the question about the responsibility, in terms of working in these male-dominated fields. It's very difficult to change the world as a whole, but you can do so much for your world and the people that you interact with day to day. And I think having that presence of mind to say, okay, I can pick up somebody struggling, or I can pick up that I was going through something similar to this, and this is what I did. Let me have a brief chat with this person. It makes the world of a difference. I think it changed my life. It made my career much easier, and just constantly trying to do that for other people that you come across as they navigate different parts of their journey is sort of taking on that responsibility without weighing yourself down with feeling like, oh, I have to change the world as a whole. You can just start with your world where you are.
Yeah. And I think as a young person entering the world of work, that was the big dream, like to go in and just change everything. You'd be like a shockwave that lands and woof, the whole organization shifts around that. And it's just not sustainable. It's not realistic. It's not a thing at all. And it is about the micro pockets. But you said something that I want to ask a follow-up question about. You mentioned you spoke to older women and mentors. What does getting mentorship look like for a young child or a young aspirant person? I have no experience, few technical skills. I want to break in. I don't have much to offer. How do I get your attention as a mentor?
I think the most important thing, and I was having a conversation about this with my sister, is stop cringing. Like, stop being afraid of putting yourself out there and trying. The worst you can get is a no. The worst you can get is a no. If you see someone, you like what they're doing, you think it would be of value for you to have a conversation with them, you think you can learn something from them, ask them the questions that you would like to ask. Reach out on LinkedIn, reach out via email if you can access their emails. If there's somebody in the office that you think is always saying great things, sit down with them, ask them for their time. Don't be afraid of no. Don't be afraid and don't cringe. There's so much power and so much liberation in trying. Like this year, I even myself, I was like, okay, I need to not be afraid of being perceived. And I need to find things that are going to be more challenging than work itself, so that I have difficult things in my life that I've chosen. It's weird, but it makes everything else feel easier. Like, just don't be afraid. Go out there, put yourself out there, ask the questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. If a person makes you feel like you're being stupid for asking, you haven't found the right person to ask yet. Go to the next person, put yourself out there, and let go of cringe. It's fine. Be cringe. Next shame. There's so much more on the other side of that.
Yeah. Hashtag embrace the cringe.
Yeah.
All right. Sarah Braithman, I'd like to find out from you if you could envision the shifts within engineering and product development in young girls, what would that look like to you?
I would love for us to be at a point where we don't even need to talk about gender when it comes to tech. It is exhausting that this is a constant conversation, you know? And even reflecting in advance of this panel, some of these questions, like, yes, I think they do have a gender tilt, and certainly my answer to them, because of my lived experience, is a certain way. But I think leadership is so much more than just gender. You know, I've had some amazing mentors, leaders, and some not so amazing that look different from each other, right? And I think it's more about the abilities and the characteristics that I want to emulate in those that I see around me. And I want the same for young girls. I don't want it to be something that they need to think about. I certainly want their journey to be easier than mine has been. Yeah, it's definitely hard. I think with me in particular, because I'm still younger in my career too, there's also age that comes into play with a lot of interactions, especially earlier in my career, where people would make assumptions about my role in a space because of my age and or gender in particular, and would often either talk down to me or would assume that I'm not the decision maker, or would just really shoot themselves in the foot in those interactions. Because I will tell you, I've never forgotten those moments, right? Even with people and whatever situation, doesn't even matter anymore. But I remember that moment and how it made me feel. And even in some of my previous roles, I've gotten feedback about being too direct. I really prefer to be direct and try to solve problems for what they are, rather than letting potentially the politics of a situation or conversation get in the way and have ego be driving. For me, it's really about fighting for my users. And if I'm ever coming at something at work, that's always where I'm coming from. It is never me fighting for ego or power or anything. And unfortunately, that's not always the reality. And so people who do act more based on perception about them or what they perceive their role to be, or things that are more internally driven, then can come into conflict with that, because they may assume I'm coming from a place that I'm not. And that has actually caused some really serious problems for me in the past, where I'm perceived as being too direct and have been told that, you know, I need to be cautious because of my gender. And that is just super painful to hear, because what do I do about that? Like, that's not something I can change. And obviously some feedback, I think the critical thing with feedback and the advice I would give is, especially when you think it's coming from a place that relates to something about your identity, whether that's gender or something else, is take it with a grain of salt. Not all feedback we need to listen to. And even I think, you know, what we've been discussing in the more creative space plays in here. What feedback do you want to take seriously and what you don't? Just because somebody's given you a piece of feedback doesn't mean you need to take that on. right? And I think especially when it seems to be something about your identity that's layered into that feedback, really sit with that and reflect on it and reflect about who you want to be in the workplace, in your personal life, wherever this is coming up. And I hope that that's something that gets easier, and I hope that that's less layered in for future generations, because it's a terrible feeling to have to realize that why you're not getting where you want to get to is simply because of how you're being perceived for whatever reason that may be.
Wow. I love the who do you want to be? That's such a big question. I don't think we're often given the chance to think about it, but also I don't know. I feel like, one of the worst questions I was asked as a child is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I was so aware of how much there was to do. And I wanted to curiously explore that with time and space, and it wasn't afforded to me. So I used to lie. I was a doctor at some point. I wanted to be a fireman because I'm like, why not a firewoman? I didn't understand it, but it's such a beautiful question, because who do you want to be is bigger than your profession. It speaks to your core values and, a lot more than just your role. So I find that quite important. So thank you so much for that. So it's hashtag embrace the cringe and hashtag who do you want to be? All right. My next question is for Nosipo. What is one myth about women in leadership that you'd like to burn to the ground today, either from your personal experience or just something you've been thinking about? What would you like to set alight and burn to smithereens today?
Oh, there's so many. Let me just flip on this list quickly. But and I feel like Sarah's already like kind of like touched on it also a little bit, and I think already, no pun intended, but I'm already feeling very emotional about that, because it just means like there's still a lot that we need to do when it comes to those kind of like myths that live, especially in our industry, whether all kinds of industry I'm learning. But I think there's a lot of them, right? But like one of the biggest one I think we can all agree on right now is that women are like too emotional to lead effectively, right? I think we've all been in rooms where, and even for Sarah to say stuff like, just be careful how you say that because it might be perceived because you are a woman. The fact that we already walk in rooms and already be perceived to be too emotional, it really does suck. And also just to be seen as a female, as opposed to a very competent person who's very much capable and who's the great person for the job. It really sucks. But I think beyond that, I don't think I want to burn it. I think I want to embrace it. Only because I think one thing we don't talk about a lot is emotional intelligence within our industry, where I don't think there's anything wrong about it being emotional. It really kind of speaks to empathy, and being in a leadership role, it really requires that kind of like understanding of people first and foremost. And the kind of role that I think I hold in my field, I know for a fact that I feel with it. The sound that's coming up, I'm not sure it's coming from. Um, I know the kind of work that I do is work where I need to understand how people think, how customers think, and beyond that. And not only that, I lead people. And I think being able to have empathy in your job can also consider both people and also performance, which I think is something that's really important. And I think if you can lead as anybody with a lot of emotional intelligence, it really drives a lot of trust. And it also, because people feel like they can relate to you a little bit better because you understand them and they understand you, it drives a lot of collaboration as well. And I think most of the time we think leaders should be tough, and I think you can be emotional and tough, one of the things that we don't embrace quite a lot is that we need to allow women to start leading in their softness. And we don't do that quite a lot because, again, society has done such a big job in requiring women to be a certain way. Do this, be strong, but not too strong. Be this and then be this. And I think it really sucks that women can't exist in their softness and still be the greatest leaders in their space, whether you're leading from an industry standard perspective or you're leading people, leading in the tech space. I think it's really important. We even have a saying that says "Wathinta umfazi, wathinta imbokodo," which for me should have been something that's really positive. But for the longest time, women are expected to be rocks and strong and tough and all of those things. But if you're too tough, they said, oh, she's not that welcoming. She's this. She's closing up the industry. She's this. She's not holding space for other women. And I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's something wrong about being an emotionally intelligent people and still being the greatest leader. And I don't think that by you suppressing a little bit of emotions will help in terms of just really enhancing humanity in our space. And I think we don't get leaders like that. We think the more tough you are, the more effective you become. And I don't agree with that. So I think more than burning that myth, I think I want to embrace that we really step into our softness as women in leadership and lead with that softness, because again, being soft does not equal being weak. Being soft does not equal being incompetent, right? And I think once we understand that emotions also can speak to strength as a leader, the kind of leader that you are, and just embracing that. So I think more than anything, I would just say embrace your softness as a leader. And I think it's really important.
Sure, that is powerful. And I completely agree with that because I think you're right. The stereotype is harshness and hardness in order to be respected or taken seriously. Um, and I am also very cognizant of what being a woman does to us sometimes, where, you want to have a family, you want to have the career, you want to have all of these things, and I find myself in very interesting conversations with my peers, where I have friends who've built law firms and have no family, they have no partner, and it's just like, I sacrifice love for this career, for my future stability. And then it's the craziest thing. The expectations are too much. You find yourself working and then you find a partner and then his family's upset with you because you're not extending the family. And now you need to extend the family. But in the same breath, your maternity leave is causing strife at work. Like, it's just never ending. The reality of being woman is insane. And Sarah said it earlier, it's exhausting to have these conversations as women in leadership, as women in advertising, as women in tech. But the saddest reality is that we need to, because someone is entering the space right now with no knowledge that these conversations have ever happened. So it's such a catch-22 because it is exhausting. Like, at some point, this shouldn't matter. And it should just be about how do we empower each other as women with the many hats that we wear, maybe, and not about the fact that you're in the position or were worthy enough to be there. Sure. Anyway, Tanya, last question before we take questions from the floor and possibly wrap a little earlier than anticipated. But in your view, Tanya, what does the future of leadership look like when more women are leading and healing and building in their truth? What do you imagine that looking like?
You think about it. Like, you just think about it for a second there. Like, everybody, just think about it for a second there. Like, listen. Just 1 second. Think about it. There's, I mean, number one, we have a poverty museum. Like, immediately, we have a poverty museum. We're walking into this museum in Africa, and 1.4 billion people are sharing with tourists about, this continent. There was a time when people didn't have 3 meals a day. There's a museum. The future of Africa or the world with women leading, there's a poverty museum. And then there's a restart into not capabilities that are limited to, I'm coming from a poor perspective, so I haven't even seen a computer, so my capability is limited to that. No. Then there's a restart. Can you imagine if the story was inverted and only women are going to do that? where we now say, actually, maybe Africa is the wealthiest continent. So now everybody else is coming. It's madness.
All right, Tanya, before I let you go, what would be your closing remarks to every young woman who's watching this, every aspirant leader, and every established leader? What would you like to let them know today?
Who did that go for?
That's for you, Tanya.
Okay. So I want, especially the youngsters, especially the young girls, go be the African president. Go aim for that.
That's the sentiment. All right, sure. Nosipo, what would you like to leave everybody with today?
I think I would like to leave everyone with oh, okay. So I think more than anything, I know that especially to women out there, that we are still walking into territories where we feel like we don't belong. And I think it's a bigger topic as well. But I think more than anything that you can walk away with today is that whatever room you will enter is a room that you belong to, and that nobody else in the room can do what you do. And if you ever find yourself in a room where you feel like, I don't belong here, ask yourself, then why am I here? But secondly, most of all, say to yourself that there's certain parts of this event that can't happen without me. They need me. My brain is very important here. My ideas matter here, and my voice is also very important here. And I think that is really important because we do find ourselves in places where we feel like we don't belong. Oh, am I deserving of this? And more than anything, push gender and push race out of it and just say, I belong here because I deserve to be here, because I'm competent enough to be here, and my ideas matter just like anybody else in the room. And that's all. And if you can have that attitude going forward with everything and anything that you do, you realize that most of the time we tend to hide in the back because we feeling like we aren't big enough to be in certain spaces. And truth of the matter is that if you made it into the room, that you needed to be there and that you matter as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nosipo. Sarah, sentiment that you'd like to leave us with?
Maybe the reverse of that, which is to be kind to others, help each other, right? Whatever it is, if it's gender, race, where you're from, whatever it might be, like if you notice something going on, stop that, be an ally, right? This conversation is not just about women being active in this space. We need everybody to be participating and helping each other to get over these hurdles. It's really uncomfortable when you're the one in the room that always has to be standing up for yourself. Don't make people do that. Help them. So that, be aware, be empathetic, and actually speak up when you see something. And then the second piece of that, I think, goes back to the beginning, which is just part of what I mentioned in my earlier answer. Bring other people into the room with you, right? Really include people, include other voices that are different than your own, so that we can have more perspectives present and really push forward and not be running with bias and assumption that is so baked into everything we do, unfortunately.
Sinesipo.
That is such an open question, but I think it's so, like, adding on to what all three ladies have said, it's so important to be yourself throughout all of that. We're constantly put under so much pressure to perform like some depiction of success, to perform some depiction of professionalism. Like, you can perform so much that there's so little of you left in everything that you're doing. And there's no way you're going to have a good time if you're not there. So it's so important to bring yourself along, to be you. There's so much value in being yourself. There's nobody else that can do it as well as you do it. So in everything that everyone has said, just make sure that you're always yourself, or working closer to becoming yourself, because sometimes so many things can happen within the workspace that can move us away from ourselves, like getting feedback that chips away at your confidence, and being able to acknowledge that this is not me. I'm not performing at my best right now because of all these other things. But if I do this and this, or if I reach out to this person, or if so and so comes to me and has a conversation with me, it's helping me move closer to that. It's so important to always make sure that you're guiding yourself in that way, because life is really, really nice when you're you. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, you stole that sentiment out of my mouth. I was literally going to say, the more authentic you are to who you really are and what you need and want, the better life is for you, regardless of the skin you're in or the body you find yourself in. Just do everything with so much authenticity and truth. And that will be you hashtag leading soft, and being strong in that, because you're just doing what's right by you. I think the difficulty comes in the pretending. That's where things become exhausting very quickly, because performing is hard and it takes a lot out of you. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for so much of the sharing that you did today. Thank you for your vulnerability, for sharing your minds, perspectives, realities. And I hope that everybody watching here today is moved and inspired. We have some very beautiful comments in the chat happening on YouTube there, so be sure to check it out afterwards. To each and every one of you watching, be sure to check out our socials. We have events every month, and we have something exciting scheduled for September. Really do hope to see you there. Tanya, Sinesipo, Sarah, and Nosipo, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.